Okay, so get this right. Imagine you're an archaeologist. You spend years searching for a lost pharaoh. You finally find a tomb. And then, instead of, exploring it, you decide to just take some mummified geese instead.
What? Mummified geese.
You heard me right. Mummified geese. Crazy, right?
Yeah, that's pretty wild. Who would do that?
Well, that's exactly what happened to Howard Carter. The guy who discovered King Tut decades before his big discovery. He actually stumbled upon Hatshepsut's tomb first, but he decided to pass it over.
Seriously. Wow, talk about a missed opportunity.
I know, right? But hey, it's lucky for us because now we get to uncover her story. So let's set the scene right. Ancient Egypt, the 18th dynasty. Pharaohs weren't just kings, they were considered divine beings.
Right, and to preserve that divine bloodline, they did things a little differently back then.
Let's just say royal family reunions were probably a bit awkward. Like,
Sure.
way more awkward than your aunt asking when you're getting married.
Yeah, the ancient Egyptians practiced incest within the royal family. They believed it. It mirrored their creation myth, solidified their connection to the gods.
Okay, so we've got powerful pharaohs, divine bloodlines, awkward family gatherings.
But don't forget about the women.
Right, right. It's easy to think of ancient Egypt as this totally male-dominated society. But women actually held quite a bit of power, especially the king's mother.
They weren't just moms either. They often acted as regents for their young sons, giving them real political influence. So like a powerful queen behind the throne.
Okay, so we've got all these pieces in place. Now imagine Hatshepsut enters the scene. She starts as king's mother, but she doesn't stop there. She goes on to become pharaoh in her own right.
Talk about breaking a glass ceiling.
More like shattering it completely.
Absolutely. It really challenges our assumptions about ancient Egypt. So how did she manage this in a society that seemed totally built for male rule?
And why did they try to erase her from history?
I mean, that's the million-dollar question.
Well, to understand that, we need to rewind a bit. Hatshepsut wasn't just some, random noblewoman who decided to grab power. She was born into royalty. Daughter of a pharaoh. Sister of a pharaoh.
And the great royal wife of a pharaoh.
Talk about a pedigree.
Right. That placed her at the center of power from the very beginning.
So when her husband, well, her half-brother actually, Thutmose II, died, she became regent for her stepson, a young guy named Thutmose III. So she took on that traditional role of king's mother, right?
Ooh, right, guiding the young pharaoh. But Hatshepsut, she had other plans.
Oh yeah, she wasn't content with just advising. So instead of stepping aside when Thutmose III came of age, she did something totally unexpected. She crowned herself co-pharaoh.
Boom. And that's where everything changes. She went from caretaker to co-ruler, defying tradition, becoming a female pharaoh in a system designed for men.
Pretty amazing, right? But she wasn't just a figurehead.
No way. She was a really effective leader. During her reign, Egypt experienced peace, prosperity, art and architecture flourished.
So she wasn't just a powerful woman. She was a great pharaoh, period.
Absolutely.
Okay, so that raises the question, how did she manage to pull this off? I mean, even today, women in positions of power often face pushback. Imagine what it was like 3,500 years ago.
Yeah, she had to legitimize her rule.
Yeah.
And she did it in some really ingenious ways.
Okay, I'm all ears. What did she do?
Well, for one thing, she knew how to make a statement. She embarked on these huge architectural projects, like her incredible mortuary temple at Deir el-Bahri.
The one carved right into the cliff face.
Exactly, with terraces, colonnades, gardens, with all sorts of exotic plants.
Wow, that must have been a sight to behold.
It was all designed to impress, solidify her legacy in stone.
But it wasn't just about, building impressive stuff.
Yeah.
Right? There was some real strategy behind it.
Oh, absolutely. She was smart. She used art and inscriptions to craft this whole narrative about her divine birth.
Divine birth.
Yeah, she claimed the god Amun was her actual father.
So she was basically saying she was chosen by the gods to rule.
Exactly. It was brilliant, a way to win over the public and the elite.
So PR and construction, got it. But wait, what about those statues and engravings where she's always dressed like a man? She's even got the pharaoh's false beard and everything. Was she, trying to hide her gender or what?
That's a great question. It's still debated by historians. Was it a way to project more authority, to align herself with the traditional image of a pharaoh?
Or was there something more to it?
Yeah, it's a puzzle. But here's where the story takes another turn. After Hatshepsut dies, her stepson, Thutmose III, He goes to some pretty extreme lengths to, well, to erase her from history.
Seriously.
Yeah, we're talking destroying statues, chiseling away her name from monuments. It's a mystery that has puzzled historians for centuries. Why would he do that?
I mean, it sounds kind of personal, right? Like he was holding a serious grudge.
It's possible,
Yeah.
but maybe it's less about personal feelings and more about the anxieties of the time. A female pharaoh just wasn't supposed to happen.
So maybe he was trying to rewrite history, to pretend like it never happened. That's kind of disturbing. Makes you think about all the stories we might be missing.
It's true. But luckily, we have archaeologists and historians working like detectives, putting those pieces together and bringing those hidden stories to light.
And they've done an amazing job uncovering Hatshepsut's reign. This wasn't just a woman who defied expectations. She was a great ruler.
She expanded Egypt's influence and left behind this amazing architectural legacy.
Okay, so now I'm really curious to dig deeper into the specifics of her reign. Like, what were her biggest achievements? What challenges did she face? And what was life really like for a female pharaoh in ancient Egypt?
Well, that's what we're going to explore next. So let's dive a bit deeper into Hatshepsut's reign, shall we? We're talking about a woman who ruled Egypt for over 2 decades. And her reign, it was marked by some remarkable peace and prosperity.
Yeah, ruling for that long, especially back then, that's no small feat. Ancient Egypt, I mean, they had their fair share of power struggles, threats from neighboring kingdoms. So how did she keep things running so smoothly?
Well, it seems like she was a pretty brilliant strategist. Unlike some of her predecessors who were all about military expansion, Hatshepsut, she prioritized diplomacy and trade.
So instead of conquering new territories, she was more focused on, like, building relationships,
Yeah.
strengthening alliances.
Exactly. And that focus on diplomacy, it led to a booming economy. Have you ever heard about that famous expedition she sent to the land of Punt?
Oh yeah, the one depicted in those amazing reliefs on her mortuary temple. It always seemed like, I don't know, more of an adventure story than a political maneuver.
Sure, it's a great story. But it was also a really smart move, both politically and economically. That expedition, it wasn't just about bringing back exotic plants and perfumes.
What was it about then?
Well, it was about establishing trade routes, securing valuable resources. It was about showing off Egypt's power and influence to the rest of the world.
Ah, so it's a bit of a power move.
You could say that. Look at all these amazing things we have access to because of our diplomacy and trade networks. It was a pretty effective message. And her reign saw an expansion of trade. They had more wealth and a period of relative peace.
Okay, so skilled diplomat, savvy businesswoman, check and check. But what about those building projects? I mean, we've talked about her mortuary temple, but she did a lot more than that, right?
Oh, yeah. Her architectural achievements, they're really impressive. And she didn't just build new stuff. She added on to existing structures, expanding and enhancing some of Egypt's most iconic landmarks.
Give me an example. Like, what did she add?
Well, for one, she made some pretty significant additions to the Karnak temple complex. That's one of the most important religious sites in all of ancient Egypt. She commissioned chapels, statues, and even those massive obelisks.
The ones that were, like, the tallest structures in the world at the time.
Those are the ones.
Wow. I can't even imagine the engineering it took to put those things up.
It's pretty mind-blowing, right? But these weren't just random displays of, architectural skill. It was all very strategic. These projects, they were designed to reinforce her legitimacy as pharaoh.
Right, she was promoting that whole narrative about her divine birth, with the god Amun as her father.
Exactly. And these building projects, they were like physical manifestations of that narrative. Every inscription, every statue, every perfectly placed column, they all worked together to reinforce her authority and her connection to the divine.
It's like she was building her own mythology out of stone.
And it worked. These monuments, they served as constant reminders of her power and her right to rule even after she died.
Well, that makes the whole attempt to erase her even weirder.
Yeah.
Like, you can destroy some statues,
Yeah.
but you can't exactly erase the entire Karnak temple complex.
Good point. I think it shows just how much her reign really challenged the established order. They really tried to write her out. But her impact on Egypt, it's undeniable.
Yeah. So let's go back to Thutmose III for a minute. We talked about the possibility of it being, personal revenge. But were there other theories about why he tried so hard to erase her?
There are a few. Some historians, they believe it was a purely political move. By erasing Hatshepsut from the records, Thutmose III could basically claim all of her accomplishments as his own.
Oh, so like a power grab disguised as historical revisionism.
That's one way to look at it. Others think it was more about societal anxieties. Ancient Egypt, it was a deeply patriarchal society. And Hatshepsut's reign, it was a direct challenge to that.
So maybe erasing her was a way to, reaffirm that order?
Maybe, send a message that a female pharaoh, that was a fluke, it was a glitch in the system that needed to be corrected.
Wow. It really highlights just how revolutionary Hatshepsut's reign truly was. It wasn't just breaking barriers. It was disrupting centuries of tradition, challenging those fundamental beliefs about gender and power.
Absolutely. And, her story is a good reminder that history, it's rarely black and white. It's messy, it's complicated, and it's often shaped by those in power.
Right. And it makes the work that archaeologists and historians do even more important. They're like detectives, right?
Yeah.
They're sifting through evidence, piecing together fragments of the past, and challenging those dominant narratives.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And thankfully, with Hatshepsut, they've been able to recover a big part of her story. We might not have all the answers, but we have enough to appreciate her incredible accomplishments. We can recognize the impact she had on ancient Egypt.
Absolutely. But let's switch gears for a second. I want to talk about Hatshepsut, the woman, not just the pharaoh. What do we know about her personal life, her personality, the woman behind all the monuments and the political maneuvering?
It's a great question. It's easy to get caught up in the grand historical narrative, but we're talking about a real person, right? Someone who lived, breathed, made difficult choices.
Right. It'd be amazing to see, her social media feed or something. What was she posting about?
I wish. Sadly, the sources we have, they're pretty limited when it comes to her personal life. We don't have diaries or personal letters.
Oh, man, that's too bad.
But we do have some clues, from inscriptions, artistic depictions. There are some inscriptions that praise her intelligence, her charisma, her devotion to the gods.
So she was smart, charismatic, and pious. What else?
She was definitely a skilled communicator
Not?
and a strategist, able to win the support of both the elite and the common people.
Sounds like a natural-born leader.
Right. And think about the strength and determination she must have had to defy the norms, to claim the throne. She was constantly navigating a system that was designed to exclude women from power.
That must have been incredibly difficult. The pressure she must have felt to prove herself over and over again.
It's a testament to her resilience, her unwavering belief in herself and her capabilities.
She really was an exceptional figure. But, okay, let's go back to that whole masculine imagery thing again. I mean, it's just such a fascinating and complex aspect of how she presented herself. Why do you think she chose to be depicted that way? Was it all just a power play, or was there something more to it?
It's a question that historians are still debating. Some say it was a strategic move, to visually connect herself to the long line of male pharaohs who came before her.
So, drawing on those established symbols of power and authority.
Exactly. But others think it was more about, navigating those complex gender expectations in ancient Egyptian society. It wasn't necessarily about denying her femininity. It was more about strategically blending those masculine and feminine images together.
To create a new image of power.
Exactly. One that reflected her unique position as a female pharaoh.
That's fascinating. So maybe it wasn't about erasing her femininity, but about expanding the very definition of what it meant to be a powerful ruler in ancient Egypt.
Precisely. It shows us that gender roles and expressions, in the past, they were often a lot more fluid and complex than we might assume.
It's a good reminder to always question those assumptions, to look for the nuances in the historical record. But speaking of challenging assumptions, I read somewhere that Hatshepsut was really into beauty products and cosmetics. That seems kind of unexpected for a powerful pharaoh, don't you think?
It might seem that way at first, but remember that cosmetics in ancient Egypt, they meant something different than they do today. It wasn't just about vanity. They were often connected to religious rituals, health practices, even social status.
Right, like that kohl eyeliner they used. It wasn't just about aesthetics.
Exactly. They believed it had protective qualities, even medicinal properties. And Hatshepsut, she seems to have been particularly interested in using frankincense, the stuff she brought back from Punt.
I heard she might have even used it as eyeliner.
There's some evidence to suggest that. And again, it wasn't just about looks. It was about connecting to the divine, reinforcing her image as a pharaoh chosen by the gods.
So her beauty routine was part of her political strategy. Wow. It just goes to show you that even the most powerful figures in history, they were still human.
For sure. They had their own personal rituals and beliefs.
It really highlights how everything is connected, history, culture, personal experience. It's not just about big events and politics. It's about the everyday lives of people, even pharaohs.
Absolutely. It makes you wonder what else we might discover about Hatshepsut as archaeologists keep digging.
Right. What other secrets are waiting to be uncovered?
Oh, that's the beauty of history, right? It's an ongoing conversation, a constant process of discovery and reinterpretation.
And Hatshepsut's story is a perfect example of that. It's proof that sometimes the most incredible discoveries, they're the ones we thought were lost forever. It's amazing to think about, that a figure as powerful as Hatshepsut could almost vanish from history completely. It really makes you wonder, how many other stories are we missing? What other perspectives haven't we heard?
It's a really humbling thought. I mean, Hatshepsut's story is a great example of how history is constantly being reshaped. It's influenced by the people in power and, well, the stories that they choose to tell.
And that makes the work that archaeologists and historians do, it's so important, right? They're like detectives, piecing everything back together, questioning those old narratives, giving a voice to the people who've been silenced.
Exactly. And with Hatshepsut, they've been able to, bring back a huge part of her story. We see her now as this shrewd politician, a brilliant builder, a leader who brought real peace and prosperity to Egypt.
She was truly exceptional.
Yeah.
But, we've talked about the whole masculine imagery thing a few times now, and I'm still curious, what do you think? Why do you think she chose to present herself that way?
It's a question that's really captivated historians. And to be honest, there's no easy answer. It was probably a mix of things, part political strategy, part understanding the gender dynamics of ancient Egypt.
Okay, break that down for me a little. What were some of those factors?
Well, practically speaking, adopting masculine attire and those traditional symbols of power, that was a way for Hatshepsut to assert her authority in a world that was, let's be honest, dominated by men.
Right, so it was like a visual statement, a way of saying, I'm the pharaoh, and you better respect me.
Yeah, but it was also about navigating the complexities of gender expectations in ancient Egyptian society. I mean, this wasn't a society that just welcomed women into positions of power.
No, definitely not. She was breaking centuries of tradition, going against everything they believed about gender and leadership.
Right, so by using certain masculine elements, Hatshepsut could, in a way, tap into that existing framework of power while also kind of subverting it at the same time. It was a really delicate balance, conforming to and challenging the norms all at once.
So she was creating a whole new image of female power, one that used those existing symbols, but also redefined them at the same time.
Exactly. And that really shows her ingenuity, her understanding of how powerful symbols can be. It wasn't about hiding her femininity, it was about expanding how they defined a powerful ruler.
That's a really powerful message, and it's one that still resonates today. But beyond the symbolism and the politics, what lasting impact did Hatshepsut's reign have on Egypt?
Even though they tried to erase her, her legacy is still there. Her reign, it was peaceful, prosperous. Art and architecture flourished. She expanded trade routes, made diplomatic ties stronger, and left Egypt wealthier and more influential.
It's incredible that even after all those attempts to erase her, her achievements are still visible today.
Her monuments are a real testament to her vision, her leadership, and her story. It continues to inspire people all over the world. It shows how resilient humans can be and how powerful it is to pursue your dreams no matter how ambitious they are.
Okay, one last question before we wrap things up. If Hatshepsut's story hadn't been, buried and forgotten, if it had been celebrated throughout history, do you think our understanding of ancient Egypt would be different today?
Wow, that's a great question. It's tough to say for sure, but I
Yeah.
do think she would be a much more prominent figure in our history books, in our general understanding of ancient Egypt.
Right, she wouldn't just be this kind of mysterious figure that we're just now rediscovering.
Exactly. And maybe her example would have challenged some of those old assumptions about ancient Egypt as a totally patriarchal society. We might have a more nuanced understanding of the roles women played in shaping that civilization, their contributions to politics, religion, and culture.
It's amazing to think about how one person's story can have that kind of impact, shaping how we see the past and even how we view the present.
Hatshepsut's story shows us that history is never really set in stone, so to speak. It's dynamic, it's always evolving. It's a tapestry woven from all these different stories, each with the power to challenge us, make us think differently, and inspire us to keep digging deeper, asking more questions. We should never stop searching for those hidden voices from the past.
Couldn't agree more. Hatshepsut's story shows the power of resilience, ambition, and the enduring legacy of a woman who defied the odds and made her mark on history.
It's been a fantastic deep dive.
Absolutely. And for our listeners, if you want to learn even more about Hatshepsut, check out the resources we've listed in the show notes. There's so much more to explore.
Until next time. Keep exploring, keep questioning, and never stop letting your curiosity guide you.